Hi, everyone. This is our podcast that we're making. My name is Scott.
I'm Jake.
Hi, Jake. So, this is the first time we've done sort of podcast together.
I think it's like the first time we've talked in a long time,
Yes,
I
the last
think.
time I have talked to you was in when you were over by Chicago.
Yeah, probably in the States, what, like six, 4 years ago? six
Yeah,
years
we
ago?
went kayaking. It was pretty badass.
It was a layover,
Yeah, I
right?
had something like a 6 hour layover, and you were kind enough to take me out to eat. Then you took me kayaking, and then we had a beer, and yeah,
hmm
drove around the world, it seemed like, because it's really far away, the airport.
The United States.
So, how are you doing today, Jacob?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I've been getting outside a lot, so that's sort of helps with the mental state, you know?
Yeah, I think exercise and maybe even just sunlight just kind of help with that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. Every day is essentially Groundhog Day for me because it's work. Well, this sounds negative. I'm not trying to say it negative, but it's about the coronavirus situation, right? So every day I wake
Sure.
up. If I'm working, I turn my PC on. If I'm not working, I turn my gaming PC on. And then sometimes we order food, and sometimes we cook at home. Most of the time, let's say we cook at home, and then yeah, everything's closed, so you can't really do anything. So we go to the grocery store every couple of days, and then that's about it. Huh.
That's sort of how my weekday goes. I get up, I do the same sort of things. I try to break it up. I've got a yard, so I'm able to go and garden, but it's not enough, I guess, to feel like by every Friday I'm just tired of doing the same thing.
Yeah, the daily grind, right?
Yeah, but it's like worse, right? Because you can't go anywhere. And it's not, I guess, not that I'm complaining like I have anywhere to go. It would be it'd be a different kind of melancholy if I was still going to work, right?
Yeah, so for you, the environment is better to be at home or to be at work?
I would rather be at home personally.
Yeah, uh, I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
I feel like I can get my work done pretty quickly, so I have time to like meander or take a walk in the yard or I don't know, watch a YouTube video in the middle of the day. Whereas like at work, I just end up working less and then just doing other shit all day.
Yes, it seems like you're required to look busy at work. Yeah. So I finish my work typically very fast, and then the rest of the day is me trying to figure out what to do with the rest of the time. So
How else can I look busy today? Is kind of what it's like at work.
yeah, a hundred
Yeah,
percent.
yeah, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is the restriction there now? Can you, so public gatherings are banned still, or can you go out with friends, or?
Yeah, so it's in a state by state still, right? So we're, let's see, Massachusetts has banned public gatherings over 10 people. So, I don't know, we went hiking, which is allowed, has been since allowed at the beginning, but we've always hiked. So, but now everyone has sort of made hiking a hobby because it's like the only thing you can do anymore. Uh, yeah,
Do you feel like you're
yeah.
getting more exercise during this time, or?
I was, and then I don't know. I think so. I use a standing desk at work, and so I think my ankles have been weakening or something by not standing all day, and I've been twisting my ankles like nonstop. So they've just I can't like run anymore. I've been hiking.
Is it made of tissue paper, or?
Yeah, I don't, you're right. I don't know, man. It's I don't know. It's terrible.
It's good to hear that you're hiking though and doing something
Yeah,
active.
yeah. I'm trying to get out there, and I think the nice thing about hiking though is like it's not about it's less about your exercise and more about being quiet and reflecting and listening
Enjoying the journey, yeah.
Sure, there's exercise involved and you sweat or whatever, but it's, the movement and all that is much more important. More important. Yeah. 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 And so I think that's where I find
I know what you mean, yeah. Instead of just running or in the gym or whatever.
where I am able to balance my week. Yeah. Right.
Yes, it's going hiking. That's good that you have that balance for sure.
That's sort of something that I really like to do. What sort of things do you find like fulfillment from? Like, you said you played video games in the morning.
Um, yeah, that's a good question because I do get a lot of joy from video games. As kind of weird as that sounds, expressing it in those terms. I mean, I think everyone either likes or dislikes them, but they've always been a part of my life. And yeah, so what I find fulfilling is a mix of work and play, and that sounds very stereotypical and a job application answer. But I notice that if I have a vacation where I'm not allowed to do anything, in terms of going outside, then it feels pretty boring. And so I do like to have the right mix of social interaction, kind of exploring new places, traveling, for example. That's really a fun thing to do.
Right, right, right.
And then just doing nothing and playing video games for hours and hours all day. So it's kind of a mix.
I constantly have this internal struggle of like, is our video games just escapism and I'm just avoiding doing the things that might be more fulfilling? Do you find that true?
I do. I think as a kid, I was judged to be
Hmm.
extremely smart, and I wonder what would happen if I never
Sure.
touched a PC. Um, yeah. So, how to describe it? That sounds very how to say, very kind of visions of grandeur thing, but I just mean that everyone was like, "Wow, your kid is so smart and shit," and I was beating adults at trivia games and stuff at the age of 10. So, wow, that sounds really
It
loser.
sounds
Okay, let me rephrase. What I meant to say was, I do find the same thing. I do find video games to be immensely enjoyable, but there's also the risk of diving into a world and ignoring all of the problems, especially for some MMOs.
sure.
And so I think you have to, again, find the balance of, okay, what's healthy for me and what am I, especially for you as a parent, you're setting an example too, right? So Finn is
Right.
also following what you do. So I think the balance to find is very important. But I think at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, then it's something that's good for you, isn't it?
I think part of it is like escapism. Like, there's probably periods in my life where I just haven't really played video games with other people, right? Like, whether it be, uh, I don't know, a time when I just didn't really have anyone to play with, or I was just, playing one-player games or whatever. I would say that those maybe are more escapists, whereas like I'm finding, especially now, my play style is more centered around like social interaction, right? So like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I think of them as they're both games. They're all games, but I think I I more so now play for the social aspect.
Interesting that you make the distinction. I was just thinking about video games as a whole, and you're differentiating between single player games versus multiplayer. That's interesting.
Our mutual group of friends online, and the games they play. I'm more likely to play those games basically only because they play them, not that I would play them by myself, but I play them because other people are playing them.
So the entry is through other people into these games. You're saying.
Right, 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 right. Or even like my son, right? So like if I'm playing a game and he's interested in it, then I think, yeah, I'll play that one and we can quote unquote play together.
I think this is a good time to ask, what games are you playing these days?
Um, I'm playing a lot of social games, right? So like Sea of Thieves, I've been playing a lot of. Forza, which is like a racing game, but you play with other people. Um, I tried playing Dark Souls, and I don't know. I feel like having those. I always have this struggle where like people want me to play a game with them, but I don't. I don't know if I don't like it or it's just the time that it takes to get good at them is too much.
Yeah, the initial time investment.
Yeah, I could probably be good at Dark Souls, but do I want to spend I don't know, 15 hours knowing how to actually play the game well?
Yeah, I've watched. I'm a big fan of the YouTube streamer Jerma985. Have you ever heard of him?
No, no.
No, he's kind of a guy that's been he just plays any game, and sometimes his audience chooses. And I think either he or his audience came on Dark Souls, and it's kind of a. I haven't watched the full stream because he streams on Twitch, but he kind of goes into a descent of madness where he starts at thinking, okay, how hard this could this be, and
Yeah.
then he kind of getting the more difficult bosses, and then sometimes he dies a few hundred times on a boss, and you can see the frustration level just rising and rising.
I know people find enjoyment out of the difficulty. I don't know, I guess I feel like as I get older I'm just playing different games for different reasons.
We're talking about games and the reason that you are playing the games, and you're saying your
Yeah,
motivation changed.
I play games for different reasons.
So, what's a game that you would define as an escape game?
I used to play I only think of it this way because I used to play a lot of Just Cause,
Okay, it's a
which
sandbox.
is like well, it's like who's the guy who does Transformers?
Michael Bay.
Yeah, it's like a Michael Bay video game basically.
That's a great way to
There's no
describe it.
there's not a whole lot of thought. I mean, it's nice. There's good message of like freeing uh, the people of an island or whatever, but really it's like going around blowing shit up, right?
Yeah, I also played that game. I think it was Just Cause 2, and I really
hmm
enjoyed the destruction and the freedom and flying around. It was just, it felt so empty somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no storyline at all. Because I mean, so when I would play it is, I mean, part of this too, right? Of this video game conversation goes into like my day to day life, right? It's like I I have a wife and a kid, so I have like a very specific time of when I can play video games. So I'm playing from maybe like 5 to 6, or maybe 5:30 to 6 or 8, depending on the day, and
Hmm.
then from 9:30 to 10 or 11. So it's like in my typical window is 9:30 to 11 is like when I play by myself without my son, because usually before my son goes to bed we'll play a game or whatever, or watch a video. So like I have a very small window to do what I want, and if there's no like immediate reward, or like if there's a waiting, because like for instance, I was trying to play Modern Warfare, their Warzone game, or War something. It's like
The new Call of Duty Battleground one, correct?
yeah, the battle royale crap. And it's fun, it's great, but like it takes 5 minutes to get into a game, and it takes you know 15 minutes to play a round. It's like I can play 2, 3 rounds, and then I gotta go to bed. It's like I don't know. That's okay, I guess. Like if I play Overwatch, I can play like 6 rounds before I go to bed.
Yeah, the timing
And
is really important and how long it takes to find versus complete a round.
right, right, yeah. I don't have like it's the same Dark Souls thing, right? It's like I don't have all fucking day to sit here and learn how to play the game. I need to get in, understand it enough, and then just go and do. I think that's why I really like Sea of Thieves, because there's no leveling structure. Like there's not everyone in the there's no way to level up in the game. Everything is cosmetic. So everyone that joins the game is on the same playing field. Everyone who has been playing forever has the same stats as you. There's no one that's better, quote unquote, than you. It's all skill based.
So, question is, could you give me a minute intro of what Sea of Thieves is? Because I've never played it.
It's a Sea of Thieves is a online pirate game essentially, and all you do is get missions and to find things. So it could be a number of things, right? So you get missions from a woman who collects skulls, and you go and kill skeletons to get skulls. You do missions from a emissary, and you do like delivery missions, or you do one from a gold hoarder, and you do different kind of missions where you dig for treasure, right? So there's sort of those kind of three basic. There's other things you can do in the game, but those are sort of the ground in which everything is built off of. And then, you're sort of thrown to the wolves to learn how to, sail the boat and to defend yourself. And there's other players playing, right? So people can go in and grief you if they want to, or they can, you can join an alliance with them or whatever. But it's very, very simplistic, especially for an online game, right? So like you and I both have played EVE Online, which is the antithesis of this game, I think, maybe, in that, it had its own in-game economy. It had, there were papers written about the fall-off distance on lasers, right? So, like, it's so complicated, and there's a lot of time sank into it, where, as with Sea of Thieves, it's like, yeah, get in a boat, go do some shit, and come back, and there you go.
I can see the difference in the gameplay there, for sure. So how many people can be in a boat?
The maximum you can have in a boat is 4.
Okay. Must be a small boat.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest ship, quote unquote, is 4. And then sometimes I do solo play where it's like just me in a boat. And so that's a smaller. So they have 3 different ship sizes. A small, which is like 1 to 2 people. A medium-sized boat, just 2 to 3. And then a large-sized boat, just 3 to 4.
Okay.
And they all...
And if you attack another player and grief them, what can you do? Do you get their stuff, or?
Yeah, you can steal all their stuff if you want to, for sure. Yeah.
Do you already have a nemesis in that game? Is there someone that keeps stealing your shit?
No, it's hard to have that kind of level of intimacy, I guess, with another player, right? So, like, I think within the servers, there's a ton of different nodes. We have tried, me and the people that play this game with, we've tried to, like, connect on the same server, and it's basically impossible. Or it's hard, right?
So you're not running into the same people?
Right. You almost never run into the same people. Almost never.
Do you think it would improve if you could have a persistent group of people you're playing with, or?
I think the game is harder then, because I think it's right for them to make it hard for like 2 teams of 4 to join together on the same server. So then they just go around and wreck everyone's
I know
stuff.
What you mean, yeah.
Whereas if everyone is on separate servers and whatever, then it's not. It sort of helps negate a lot of like that griefing.
Do you think that's an intentional choice from the developers, or?
I would think so.
Yeah, I used to play DayZ every now and then, and there was always a group of poop sockers that would run around killing everything, and you just had no chance. So
Yeah.
They would often be on the coast where the newbie area is, and just shooting everything that moves. So I think if you have 5 to 10 people that want to band together, they can really control a game where you have persistent servers like that.
Yeah, and I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Of like, it sucks that we can't play with more than 4 people, but it's also good that there's no like 12-person crews.
Yeah, that sounds kind of insane having someone manning a ship with 12 people.
Yeah, but thankfully 4 is the max. And alliances are very loosely based. It's basically a way for if you run into someone on some islands and they don't want you to kill them, you can join an alliance and be like, and you get half of their treasure take, right? They don't take any less, but you get half of their take.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a way of avoiding you.
It encourages people to work together.
It's really
then.
funny. Yeah, right. And then they get half of my take, and everyone gets gold or whatever. It's fine. But if you want to be a jerk, you can be a jerk and say no and try to kill them if you want to.
Have you ever been a jerk before?
I think I've tried to be a jerk, and it usually ends in failure. Yeah. No. I think usually, I feel like a lot of my, like, goon griefing tendencies have waned, especially as I got older and had a kid. I get less joy out of ruining someone's day because I know how much time they put into it or the energy.
Sounds like you're gaining empathy, yeah.
Yeah. It sucks, right?
And just to go back and explain the reference for anyone listening, we used to be part of an online community called somethingawful.com, and anyone from that community was known as a goon, and they had many famous articles and funny pranks. So in case you hear that reference, that's what we're referring to.
Weirdly, the culture of their gaming together was around like making the game hell for everyone else.
Causing suffering.
Yeah. There was a lot of like joy from other people's suffering in other games. And while I don't know if I feel bad about it now, I don't want to do it anymore because I know it takes it's like time and energy.
Yeah, it sounds like you're almost saying a pick your battles kind of mentality.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't blame the people who do it either, right? It's like I did that once myself. I know how much fun it can be.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, there are some people that are really how to say it? There are some people that are really surprised when someone griefs some online game. They can't understand the mentality of someone trying to wreck their shit.
I don't know. It's kind of cathartic in a way, or it was, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Got a lot of enjoyment out of that at some points in my life.
What sort of things are you getting out of your life?
What am I getting out of my life? Let me think of that. Right now, I think I'm in a phase where I'm building up financial stability. That sounds really old and boring, but there was a time in my life where I would just have nothing in my bank account and wouldn't think about the future. And now I'm doing old person stuff like buying ETFs and putting money towards
a DTF.
ETF, electronic. I think it's electronic trading funds or something like that.
Like a retirement
no,
fund?
they're an index fund. Hang on, let me see if I can find. So it is an exchange traded fund. So you could buy a stock on the market and then you put all your risk in that one company, or you can buy 500 companies. So you could look into the healthcare sector or the technology sector, and then when you buy that, it's a fund that's managed by some rich asshole somewhere, and then you hope that their decisions are good decisions, and then you could buy and sell these on the market. So I've put a lot of my savings towards that, and then doing other stuff like retirement plans and funds, and yeah, suddenly like I'm realizing, oh hey, I could get old one day, you know.
Sure.
So that's the phase that I'm in. That's what I'm getting out of life. Is my company offers me this Security during this. Oh, this sounds like I'm promoting my company. I do like my company, but I'm just meaning that the financial situation is kind of weird right now with Corona, and some people don't have jobs. So I'm just appreciative that I have a job and that there are no threats of layoffs. You know.
Sure. Sure.
So to answer your question with one word, I would say right now it's security.
Huh.
It's this. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I have no idea what my answer would have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you? Can I reflect the question back to you?
Sure. Sure. I I don't. I guess a lot of my questions are asked because I'm unsure, right? So like, I don't know what I'm getting. I think and I'm trying not to steal yours, but I guess stability, right? Is I am in a place where I don't have to I wouldn't say work that hard, but I still have to work, but I'm not like breaking my bones or whatever working in at a restaurant anymore. I'm my my kid has a normal day usually,
No
and
night
then
shifts.
you know it's not right. It's not like I don't know normal. I guess I'm getting a normal life or what I envision what a normal life would be.
What is a normal life?
Man.
Throw you a curveball there.
You know what? I I think the life that I lead now, I guess, is one that I had always thought was just normal, right? I've got a house and a wife and a kid in a in the suburbs with a minivan. We have a yard. We have a dog. Like, it's just normal. I guess thinking through that, I think a lot of that comes from like my mother trying to give us a normal life when I was young,
Yeah.
and so I think the life I have now is quote unquote normal.
Yeah, I know there's a story with your father. It wasn't easy growing up.
Yeah, I mean, he was distant and terrible, and I mean, not terrible. He was distant. Um, he never really knew how to be a dad or cared to be one.
Were your parents together when you were a kid or separated?
Uh, Not in my memory of being a
Okay,
kid.
so he was always kind of
I think I
outside,
was
out of the
3.
picture.
Sure, yeah, yeah. And he, I think he only cared enough to keep us happy while we were in front of him. And then when we were gone, it was out of sight, out of mind, I
Oh,
think.
that's very tragic, dude.
I and I for a long time I just thought, you know, that it was what I don't know. I never thought anything of it, I think. And I think as I grew old, and especially after I had my son, I thought like how, and I know there's people out there that have worse relationships, right? So like a buddy of mine, his dad like would beat him and his mom, and like he had to fight his dad when he was 17, to
Wow.
like kick him out of his own house. Like I didn't have that situation, so like for me to say like, oh yeah, I've had it so rough, like I it could have been worse, sure, but I think his lack of interest in me, and self-centered as it sounds, like I don't I think it definitely set a precedent on like what I think like back to the thing, right? It's like what I want out of my life. It just like it would be great to have a normal life, quote unquote, as much as, especially now, as much as I can for my kid. Right? It's just like to have some stability.
So it was a really important influencer or an influencing factor in your life.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if your father, if you weren't very close with him, who was the most important person in your life?
Um, I think that's a hard question. Uh, I think the person that has most influenced me as an adult maybe has been my uncle. He's kind of like my father because he was like because my dad wasn't around. Like I've spent more time with him. I've talked with him more. Like I would spend my birthdays with my uncle. Uh, Especially as I grew older, like I could drive, I would go into the city and visit him. I would, uh, even now that Finn's older, we we would go to where he lives and we would go and visit him there, right? Like when we lived in Chicago, he has a place in Michigan. We would go there, I don't know, 3, 4 times in the summer.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty often then.
Yeah, yeah. I call him, once a month or whatever, and so I think he's been much more of a father figure than my own dad had been.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's yeah, and even when I don't remember this, but my mother does, I guess, in that growing up, my sister had my nieces who were closer in age to her, so she would always play with them. There's no boy my age in my distant family, so it would, for whatever reason, I always would play with him because I don't know, he like at family gatherings and stuff, he would be the one that I would play with, or he would bring a toy or whatever.
The person you'd be closest to at that during that time, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it just had a different relationship than, I don't know. I named my other uncles. Like I guess my brother too. He spent a lot of time with my mom's brothers because they were closer. They're close-ish in age. But yeah, I think they were closer in age, right? So then they would spend more time together with him. So I think, I don't think my brother would ever admit to it, but I think they were probably a father figure as well, like a analog.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Not that my brother would ever like speak in terms of that or like think about it that much, but I think that's probably true.
That's good that you guys had someone that you could turn to.
Yeah. My brother's not really introspective, right? He's or at least doesn't ever speak in that way, I guess.
Is he more of a Chad doer?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say that he's like a douche or anything. I think he attempts to be a doer, right? But I think he still has like emotional fragility, right? So he tries to be a hard ass, but it never really, he can never like really fulfill that because he's
still vulnerable,
still fragile, right? Vulnerable that's much more accurate. Yeah.
Well, fragile is also a good word, just different. I'm not sure where I was going with that. Never mind.
What's
I was
that?
trying to say fragile is also a good word, but I couldn't think of a reasoning for that, so I just said fuck it. Never mind.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, my brother was this is 7 years older than me, so his reaction was whatever. And then my sister is only 18 months older than me, and so it was a much different experience where we sat down and had dinner in my tiny Chicago apartment, and my mother was there, and my sister and my soon-to-be wife and I was there, and we were all talking about it. And I think as a family, we never really talked about it. It just was, right? And so I think what happened was my sister never really thought about it. She never, she never, she never thought about it, right?
It was just so
So,
normal that it didn't seem unusual, or it was just the way it
well,
was.
yeah, right, right. It was just the way it was, right? And I don't know if she ever thought about it being normal, not normal, but I think it finally hit her when we were having dinner with her that one day 9 years ago, right? And um, she was like, I don't know if distraught is the right word, but it seemed like she was moved more than even I was, right? She was very uh, emotional. She even said it, right. She's like, I never even thought about it this way, and it's I feel terrible, and my wedding's coming up, and she's like, I'm not letting him walk me down the aisle, and so I think, I, I don't know, maybe it was obviously it was probably poor timing on my behalf to let her be ignorant or longer so that she could, her wedding wouldn't be ruined. But I think, yeah, I think it sort of came to fruition around the same time, right? It's like your parents aren't supposed to ignore you.
Definitely. I think, yes, maybe the timing was not so great, but at the same time, when is the best time for something like that? It's to
Sure.
have a very difficult family discussion. I think it's probably better to get it out of the way, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I feel like I have to defend him, but I don't think he's a bad person. He's not. He's not like, I don't know what he's like now, but I can't imagine he's got like Nazi flags or tattoos or Nazi tattoos or anything, right? Like, I think he's. I mean, one of the last times I talked to him, he was talking about how, you know, Kennedy was one of the best presidents ever. So I can't imagine he's too much of a racist, but who knows anymore?
Who knows anymore?
I guess in that way. So then, like, what is your relationship with your parents?
Ah, yeah. So as you know, when I was rather young, my father passed away. Unfortunately, I think I was 13 or 14, and
Sure.
so I think I was close with both of my parents. And then
Hmm.
obviously after that point in time, then I didn't have a father, and then so I naturally got a bit closer to my mom as far as adapting her worldviews and habits. So I think I
Mm.
lived until I was 18 at home, and then I moved out. So that was a good 5 years or so of every day being around the same people, my sister and my mom. So I think that, yeah, to answer your question, I was close with both of them, and I do have really good memories of both of them. It's just unfortunately, at one point, someone is not there anymore, and it was kind of weird having to deal with that. The couple years afterwards were extremely strange, I would say, trying to figure out what the place in the world was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, how did you like navigate that? Right? Is like, I think, like, is there enough distance now between then and now for you to sort of evaluate who you were?
I would say so. I took the introspective route of completely ignoring it and then immersing myself in video games. And
Sure.
yeah, so my mom and my sister, they took a different route. They went to counseling and presumably therapy for it. And I didn't. I just kind of did everyday life. And it took me a lot longer to process those events, I would say. So as a result, as a teenager, I was extremely introverted and totally
Mm.
immersed in video games. And I would only hang out with friends to play video games with them and that kind of thing. In retrospect, it was a pretty weird time period, but I think I did pretty good considering the circumstances. You know, going to school, not dropping out, and going to college. So yeah, I made the best of it, I would say. So I used to live in North Carolina, and he is buried in Connecticut, which is a really long way away driving, as you know. Um,
Yeah.
It's like a
Uh-huh.
good 13-hour drive. So I think I visited his grave maybe 3 times, something like that.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure. So,
Well, I wanted to ask you, so now as a father, you know what not to do, let's say.
sure.
I think everyone says that. They say, "Hey, I know what my parents did wrong, so I'm gonna do this differently." And my question to you is
If
a positive.
only.
Yeah. Well, that's what some parents do. Some future parents would say.
Oh
Um,
no. So I can see where people say stuff like that, but it's sort of hard to break from it, right? Unless like your parents were abusive or they were, um, and that's to say too, right? It's like parents who are abusive came from abusive families, right? So like
Makes
that's
sense.
how they
Yeah.
were raised, and that's how they're gonna raise you.
Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to for Finn's life?
I saw that question. I thought about it. Right? I think I almost want to say like a cheesy answer, like his tomorrow. Right? I'm excited for what he's got tomorrow. Like what's coming up. Like, what is he excited for? I I don't know. I I think distance and time makes fools of us all. In that, like thinking right now, like I think probably my favorite time with him was when he was like 3, and like when I was a stay-at-home dad, right? So when he was younger, I was a stay-at-home dad. So I think my favorite time with him was that period, right? He was quiet. uh, I think I'm spoiled in that I have the time to do as I to do whatever we want as well. Not just time, but financially, right? Like not every parent is able to see their sons on the weekend, or to see their daughters on the weekend, or to I don't know, take a weekend vacation, to another state or whatever, right? And go
Because
hiking
of working
or
hours, or
right, right. So I don't know. I think a lot of people are excited for in their kids' life are probably the things that I worry about, right? I have like anxiety about like if he wants to get married, or if he wants children, or if he finds love, or you know I I find those parts of my life to be difficult, and I as a parent, you don't want your kids to have the hard parts of their life. So I think I think in those parts, I think like I don't know. I want everything. I just want it to be easier for him. I guess that in my roundabout way. Yeah, I guess in that way, I don't know. I'm excited to see how he grows up and who he becomes.
that's a very, very, how to say it, wholesome answer, you know?
It's a very dad answer, sure. Do you live with your girlfriend, fiance, whatever you are,
Yes, my girlfriend, yeah, boyfriend.
boyfriend? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not judging. I'm just trying
yeah,
to
we're
figure out what
almost
your
together
life's
about
doing.
2.5 years, so I think marriage is coming into the question, and then future planning with kids and all that. So it's getting pretty real. She's German,
Is
yeah.
she
She's
German?
her parents are from Vietnam, and they fled, I guess, the war after the war, and then they all went on the same plane
Uh-huh.
to Germany. So they're all kind of spread around northwest Germany. So
Huh.
yeah, so she's German,
Interesting.
but she has Vietnamese ancestry, and during the times of
Is she born in?
yeah, she was
She was
born in
born in Germany then. Yeah.
Village, which is a small place near Krefeld, which is near Düsseldorf. Yeah, but right now it's a bit tough because the whole Corona thing. People often are accusing her and her sisters of being the
Carriers.
yeah, pretty much. It's
Sure.
like caveman thinking.
That's fun. In Germany? You don't say.
Yeah, her sister is in Munich, which is a very lovely city, very nice. I'm not part of the tourism board there or anything, but the people are kind of very politically conservative, and their attitudes are a bit ass backwards sometimes. So
Mm.
her sister gets that very often. Let's say like once a week, someone is saying like, "Hey, you Corona," or like laughing at her and pointing and just random dumb shit. So
Sweet Jesus.
yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah.
I guess I think that that's terrible, but I'm sure that's happening in this country too. Just
Yeah,
fucking sad.
definitely. Yeah. So I'm looking at our list. You've got two. I've got one. Do you want to do one each, or do you want to do both of yours, or how do you want to do this?
I don't know if I like one of mine, but I'll do one. I'll do one. I guess you kind of answered it in a way, but I guess are you doing what you love?
Um, I think if you'd asked me this question a year and a half ago, I'd say no. It's awful. Because I was going through a period where I was working a lot and had at work. There's a lot of negativity based on the political situation in the company. We were doing some sort of deployment of software, and it was going really, really badly. And the company decided, okay, hey, we're going to stop it and do a market analysis to see if this thing we've been developing for 10 years is worth continuing. Or
12 years.
yeah, it was like 10 years, 2006 or something like that was when it started. And luckily, the analysis came to the conclusion that we were using the best thing available. So they looked at the competitors to see what kinds of other solutions were available on the market. And so basically all the work that we had done for the last, I had been there since 2014. So the last few years, it was just completely worthless, you know? And that was a really bad feeling. But luckily, the decision was made to continue with the software deployment. And now we're in a really good place, actually. So I do technical writing. Yep. So I do technical writing, and we're just starting to branch out into doing kind of more e-learning stuff, so online trainings and also video tutorials, screencasting, stuff like that. So
Mm.
I've got a lot more creative freedom right now, and everything's looking pretty good for the software. So right now, I would say yes, I really am doing what I love, and it's flexible as well. So I'm working at home 3 days a week, so half days.
So did you? I guess in that way, did you learn to love what you're doing, or are you doing what you love? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would say it's more of the former case where I had a situation that was pretty good. I mean, wasn't so bad, and then I made it into a better working environment by requesting my own kind of software solutions and also changing my work schedule a bit so that I worked at home half days, 3 days a week. Of course, now in Corona times, we work at home pretty much all the time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I made it into something that was really fit to my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Sure.
I could see myself doing this for years even.
Really?
Yeah, which is something I don't think I could say about every job that I've had. Some jobs you're thinking every day, okay, I'm quitting tomorrow. Or you're calculating the years until retirement, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. I mean, someone I know and someone you know has a countdown clock that counts down when they can retire to get their benefits for their pension.
is that
And they sent it to their boss even, so it's like,
oh, gee. Is that Oren or
yeah, Cessna.
yeah? I'll edit that part out, but I was just kidding. That's such an Oren sound thing to do, Cessna. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that bad, I guess, but I don't know. I had this conversation with my boss too, just like on Thursday, about like, I don't know if what I'm doing is what I want, and I don't feel good about what I do.
What did she say, or he?
He understood, right? He's like, yeah, he. I was like, I've been feeling this way for years, but especially now during coronavirus and Black Lives Matter and all of this is, does any of this matter? Like, what am I doing here, right? Like, he's like, yeah, I get that. I'm like, it's just, having existential crisis, right? I mean, I'm 30, I'm almost 35, so it's par for the course, I guess.
Yeah, I I know what you mean. I was gonna ask, have you thought about what kind of direction, if you were to change things with the career, what kind of it sounds like you're looking for more meaningful things to do. You know what I mean? Not to discount your work, but
Yeah, I mean, even at work, right? As I started there about a year and a half ago, year and a half ago, sort of like a specialist role, and doing, and essentially that in marketing, specialist is like you're given tasks and you do them. Whereas now, well, I sort of built up because there wasn't really any strategy or anything, or working on clients and stuff like that. Sort of built up like a more director, really more of a manager role than a director. But my boss gave me the director title, which whatever. So I'm a digital director now. Well, doesn't really mean anything when you don't have any employees, but I I've worked. We were right before Corona happened. We were onboarding a. Actually, we had been working on a huge client. There's a 12-city tour for a nonprofit that raises money to feed kids. But we were doing all the marketing for these events, and I had built out this more or less convoluted but complicated structure of ads and timing and what the runway was and budgeting, and I had like spreadsheets full of numbers that told me like what day it was going to start and for how much money per day, and if there was sort of a graphical chart of like what our spend would be over time, and it was complicated. And then Corona happened right as we were launching the first campaign, and they canceled the whole tour. So coupled that with at the same time we were talking about hiring a new hire, basically for me, a digital like an assistant. And so I was like, after being in marketing for 12 years, I was finally starting to find my legs in my career, and then coronavirus happened and I'm stuck.
yeah, it sounds like it was for a good cause too, and then putting that on hold suddenly, then
Yeah, and like the clients we have now, I mean, we had them before, but that's all we have now. We're like bad ones. Like it's they're not even so that we sort of fall into two categories, right? It's like good people with what I think is a bad mission, or people that have a bad mission but aren't that good of people either. So we
okay.
do. One of them is is a pawn shop, right? And I feel conflicted, I guess, about what they do. Right? It's like they provide a service, people need it. Each sure, I guess, but I don't know.
I can respect
Community
that.
bank
Yeah,
would probably go a lot further.
I would say it's time to get out then, right?
I guess, man.
Or find a company that is there marketing companies that specialize in certain directions, or
I don't know. I just hate marketing, I think.
okay, that's a pretty good reason to not do marketing.
I guess I'm pretty good at it, but I just don't like I don't feel good about it almost ever. I don't I've never really felt like I've been doing the right thing.
Do you know the happiest people I think I've ever encountered doing their job was in California. We were hiking over in Big Pine, and we're not really big hikers, but we were doing a kind of an adventurous trail for us, like an
Yeah.
uphill trail to kind of an alpine lake. And we met some rangers as well as people that were working on the trails, which I guess they're
Yeah.
volunteers or something. Those people were
Uh-huh.
they looked so content and fulfilled, walking by them. It
Yeah.
was really trippy.
Yeah, you are not the only one. Just say that I should work at like conservation or whatever. It's like, yeah, Yeah, that would be nice.
Oh, that wasn't a suggestion. It was just an observation about job satisfaction. Sorry.
No, it's funny that you mention it though, for sure. I've applied to local positions for people that that kind of position.
It's never too late to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, my problem is I don't know who I want to be.
You've got time to figure that out, right?
Sure.
Have you ever
Yeah.
thought of a job counselor, just out of curiosity?
No,
No, okay. I've never used
I
one.
haven't.
I just have heard that they can sometimes be helpful.
Sure, sure. Yeah, my other thought was like a professional mentor or something. But I think in that realm, I think most of it would be like, yeah, you just gotta find a different client list, buddy. Like that's
Yeah, could be. I mean, isn't a mentor always connected to a certain industry, or?
I feel like they usually are,
Uh,
but I don't know. I've never had a mentor to know.
Unfortunately, me neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna go to my last question here, and maybe this will be a kind of a fun way to round out this episode. Is there someone in history that you admire particularly?
Um, Man, that's a hard question. I mean, part of the problem is like anyone I choose has skeletons.
That's true. Yeah, many people have different. It's hard to be perfect. Yeah.
I don't know. I think like Teddy Roosevelt is pretty interesting, and his conservation work and his work with I don't know, trying to recover the country. I think are interesting.
Yeah, he did do
I
lots of
don't know.
conservation work, right?
Yeah, I think both of them did. Both Roosevelts, right? I think. I don't know. I think that's a harder question for me only because everyone is like a milkshake duck. Do you know that expression?
I do not actually.
It's a Twitter thing. Apparently, what happens is like someone becomes famous for doing good, and then people will start looking into them, and then they'll have said like N bombs or something on a podcast, or they'll uh, I don't know, say something like completely asinine, and then without fail, like 24 hours later, this person that was rallied around becomes this fucking terrible human being that everyone is like now says is canceled. It's a milkshake duck.
I have to look that one up. That's funny. It's so easy for stuff in the past to show up online, right? Nowadays.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Uh, I think people who care about other people, I think is I don't know, people who fought for their rights, people who um, tried to rally their people who meant something.
It's not
I
easy,
think
right?
sure, I could say, Faulkner or an author or an artist or Martin Luther King Jr. or I think that I prefer qualities over the person. I think following a person gets you in trouble, whereas just trying to understand their passions rather than them as a human being uh, makes for a more a clear path forward, a clearer meaning, right?
So
What they were
looking,
trying to do rather than who they were.
okay, so looking at their deeds as opposed to what they might have said or whatever.
Sure, 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 right? Like they could be that they're not people are broken icons or legends or who we hold in our mind are different, right? Like it's this whole thing now with Christopher Columbus, right? When I was 8, I would be like, no way, don't take down the Christopher Columbus statue. But like now, sort of understanding history, yeah, like Christopher Columbus is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't, or like when I was 8, having Confederate statues up probably made sense because that's part of their history. Like Germany doesn't have Nazi statues up. They don't have Nazi generals up in their cities, do they?
No,
Right.
not that I'm aware, but
You say no, and then there's like 12 or something. Point being is like, I think that it's more important. It's like the same thing with like, don't meet your heroes, right? It's like try to hold things in your mind that are better than who they are.
okay, so it's kind of don't spoil the surprise by talking to them and then learning something you don't want to learn.
Right, right. Like if you're a big Vin Diesel fan and then you go meet Vin Diesel and he's just a fucking asshole, it's like it's like, oh yeah, they're human. The weirdest thing, I was listening to this podcast about this guy who has a very unique name, and he's from the Middle East. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't remember what country he's from, but he's from the Middle East, and he has a name. The only other person in the entire U.S. or quote unquote U.S. who has this name is a man who is imprisoned at Guantanamo.
Oh no. Okay.
And so he does research on this person to find out who he was and where, how he got in Guantanamo and why is he still there and yada, 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 right? And they had this portion of this podcast about Osama bin Laden, right? It sort of made me realize that, like, even the scariest, because I'm sure as someone that grew up around the same time of 9/11, you sort of understand that, you sort of think of, like, you imagine that Osama bin Laden was like this demon or, some sort of horrible beast, right? Like that lives outside of human existence.
Yeah, totally. You vilify him. Yeah.
Right. But then I was listening to this podcast and it sort of explained who he was and how he lived, and he had a commune, right, where he wanted to help the people who followed Islam and was trying to give people jobs and work on his farm, and he was trying to make a better life for people. And I was like, this guy is just it's just a dude. Like it's the same thing, right? It's like you put people on a pedestal and try to idolize them. But then on that same token, you also make people into villains.
Yeah.
They're just people on either end. They're human beings. They're not above or below, or they're not from hell or heaven. Like people are fucked up. Yes, I'll grant them that, but they're still people.
I know exactly what you mean. Just forgetting the human traits of people, whether for bad or for good. Right?
Sure. And I'm not saying like, oh, Osama bin Laden is not such a bad guy. I'm just saying he was a person too.
Yeah.
I guess it makes me really think about like how if we just, instead of like trying to attack our way to freedom or peace, like, I don't know, helping people get there, right? Like, I don't know.
It's probably
sort of ludicrous.
I also agree with you that I don't think it's the way to keep invading other countries, but I don't know what the better alternative is. So I don't.
Well, even like our own country, right? Like the U.S.
Yeah, maybe focus more on the inside right now.
What is it? I mean, it goes both ways, right? It's like, what good does it do to go into predominantly black neighborhoods and wave guns around, right? Who are you helping? Like, to armor, do you put money into armor, or do you put money into social programs so people don't need to buy? You know what I mean? Like,
totally agree with you. Yeah, 100%.
Like, all you're doing is making it worse. We have to, I don't know, attack the root cause of all of the systemic issues, and not just, it's like the Hydra. You cut the head off of the snake, and you're gonna get 6 more.
Yeah, so as opposed to addressing the symptoms, address the root cause of the problem.
Right.
Makes sense, Mr. Davis. So, Jake, I think I'm probably going to stop the recording here. Do we have a final word to say to our audience?
I'm sorry for anyone who had to listen to it.
That's a great one to wrap it up. I too am sorry. I'm just kidding.
That'd be a great closing card, right?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to listen to that.